which is, okay. Thank you. Okay, we do want to acknowledge that with great respect, we are on Cherokee tribal land for generations and generations, and we greatly appreciate the care and the love that they have provided. We do this program every first Wednesday of every month here in this room, although in July, we're going to have a picnic, and we're going to invite you guys, so keep posted. It'll be on our website. I think it will be in West Asheville Park, so please be aware. We want you to come and bring a potluck. So it's on Zoom and it's in person, as you know. We have a Kids Adventure Club, and if you guys are interested, we take out kids from community centers like Montford, Tempe, Stevens Lee, about every other week in the summer. And if you're interested in helping taking a kid, and how many of you have petted a snake? Can I see the volunteer? Oh, look at that. And it is great fun to have a kid here, and they're excited to pet the snake. And you're going, oh. Okay, we have 2 hikes. David, are you here? And I will tell about Moore's Cove, and you tell about Laurel Creek.
I know there's some hikers out there, so we need you to get outdoors and enjoy the great outdoors. I'm leading a hike on the 15th, which is a week from Friday, along Laurel Creek is really Laurel River in Madison County, but it's a beautiful hike. Folks, it is as flat as it gets in the mountains. So now it is a 7.2 in and out, 7.2 mile in and out hike, but it's a beautiful hike, and we'll set an easy pace.
All right, help me out. May 15th is Thursday, if I'm on the right year. Do you want to do a Friday?
Oh, it is a Thursday. I'm sorry. So thank you, Judy. I got ahead of myself. May 15th is a Thursday, but let me know, get in touch with me. The hike is posted on our website, and I hope for good weather. And the other hike is coming up on the 25th, led by our other outings leader, Ed Maggart. And it's the Moore's Cove Falls, which is a relatively short hike off of Highway 276 in the Pisgah National Forest to a beautiful waterfall. So get in touch with Ed. His contact is on the website too.
And I want to tell you just briefly about Moore's Cove Fall. How many of you have been there to Moore's Cove? Yeah, you guys know. It's one of the few waterfalls you can walk behind, and that is just so fun. I mean, it's not a huge volume, but it's just so beautiful. And if you haven't been, go. I love it. Love it. Okay, these are action alerts or community things that you can be involved in. This Sunday is a native plant swap. It's the Blue Ridge Naturalist Network. And this gives you the address there, 39 Cortland. How many of you guys would have native plants that you'd like to take and swap for a different native plant? I know I like that. Okay, well, you can also buy them. So if you want, so think about it. And this is a great fundraiser for Blue Ridge Naturalist Network. Carolina Mountain Club, you guys know we had something called Helene, right? And the trees are on the hiking trails. They are calling for volunteers, if you're interested, to help clear trails. So whatever you feel like you could do, anyway, the contact would be volunteer at Carolina Mountain Club, and they would love it. I want to brag a little bit. The Bluffs, if you remember this from years, there was going to be a big development of, I don't know, a couple hundred condos right above the French Broad River with a lot of discharge into the river, sediment, et cetera. And golly gee, we helped and we did lots of lawsuits. And 5 years later, guess what? It's a conservatory. Is that just too cool? I want to tell you something else that I just think is the happiest thing. So Rocky Fork State Park. How many of you have been to Rocky Fork? Oh, you guys are wonderful. If you go again, look at that big trailer right as you drive in, and there's a wonderful picture. Guess what? It is a wheelchair. So anybody needing a wheelchair, and the tires on that thing are huge. And so if you know somebody in a wheelchair and you want to get them out to the park, this wheelchair will go down to the river, go all around, and you can reserve it here at this number for $44 for a whole day. And that's just too cool in my mind. Want to also brag on one more thing. We help stop crypto mining in Burke County. Not the whole county, but the city of Hildebrand. Once we educated them on what crypto mining is and what it does, they passed these incredible noise ordinances and these container ordinances, so no crypto miner can function. So they're banned. So yeah. Okay, there is a bad bill going through the state legislature. What it would project is that developers could come in and bypass the local ordinances. So if you get our newsletter, we gave you a bunch of people that you could write to and say, are you crazy? We also have Interstate 26, and Ken, did you bring down the flyers on Interstate? Could you bring them in? We have some comments or some suggestions, and if you'd raise your hand, we'll hand out some of these to you. You have to put in a comment before May 25th. If you are concerned about that flyover instead of the tunnel going under Patton, if you are concerned about I don't know, I think it's going to have 10 lanes at one point. Would you raise your hands, and please don't keep it, but if you could take a picture of it. Is there anybody else who would like a flyer or comments? Okay. If you'll take a picture, please, and then let Ken pass on. Okay. Our next program, as a matter of fact, will be dealing with Interstate 26, but more than that, how to plan Asheville as a good, solid, smart community. How to prevent sprawl, how to prevent noise, but how not only to prevent, but to make it wonderful. So we all want wonderful. So that will be, yes. And there are some on the table if you would like to put any of our flyers, announcements for our next meeting for Smart Urban Planning for June 4th. If you'll take some from the table and put it in your local coffee shop or bulletin board or church or Ingalls or wherever you want to put it. So this is what you are here for. You have got Mr. Scott Dean, and he's been a love of my life for 20 years, maybe. His wife doesn't know this. But we've been on wildflower hikes for forever. He was with the original wildflower pilgrimage with UNCA. He's done programs with the Great Smokies pilgrimage. He helped organize Blue Ridge Naturalist Network certification program, taught classes there forever. And get this, he built the cougar and bobcat habitats at the Nature Center. So welcome, this wonderful man.
Probably channeling Henny Youngman, but my reputation may exceed me. We'll get this set up and then we'll see what we can do.
But you have to stay by the mic.
Okay. Okay. I have no idea.
Wait. Make one more announcement.
Oh.
I just saw in person the announcement I've been meaning to make. We have a wedding anniversary celebration tonight. So will you guys stand up? This is Ellen and David Feingold, and they're celebrating with Wildflowers. Woo-hoo-hoo.
Hello? It's working now. Okay. Uh, a lot of what I do with the Wildflowers and everything is folklore, common name derivations, cultural thoughts about them, which ones are magic and why they were thought to be magic. I knew more about that in the late 60s and early 70s than I do now, but I'm fascinated by them. My grandmother, my granny, she teases me because I can't do a program and not talk about my granny because she gave me so many of the common names and the folklore, and probably is the reason I love them so much. I wrote the original curriculum for the Blue Ridge Naturalist program, which I personally think the future's a little uncertain right now out at the Arboretum with new management. I'm not sure how that's going to turn out, but I was very proud of that. It was a really good program for about 20 years, and it's been a world of fun to do. I am not the only Luddite in the crowd, apparently. So I will tell you that I gladly do these programs for the Sierra Club because if they've ever been necessary, it's now. Only you can prevent a whole lot of stuff. And if we're not all active, I kind of upset that we didn't prevent it in November. I'm not sure there should be the need for all of this outcry if people had actually taken part in that process. I'm a retired military guy, and it's not what I thought I was serving. But do what you can. Keep the faith. One of the things, if we get this going, is I was down at Snowbird Mountain Lodge a couple of weeks ago and out with the people. We were on the Cherhola Skyway, and we stopped and filmed the whole ridge line burning because they had big fire. We couldn't get into Joyce Kilmer. But 3 of the Forest Service supervisors were there watching the helicopter drops and communicating with them. And I didn't even know I had it till I was back editing the video I'd shot with my phone. But the very last of the little snippet you'll see tonight, you'll hear one of the ladies that was with me going, "Boy, we're really glad you've got the funding to do this." And you hear the guy go, "Funding?" And then you hear all 3 of them laugh, which is a sad thing. So support the Sierra Club, keep it going. I don't know what's going on. Okay. I got an email and I was asked, somebody had contacted them concerned about getting advice on species of trees for planting, for compensating for the damage from Helene. I am not actually qualified to give you that advice because that will depend on your location. You need to have a soil analysis done. You need to know your exposure. You need to know your precipitation. You really, if you are concerned with that sort of thing, contact a local arborist because they are trained to know that, and they can come out and do a site assessment for you and put you in the right direction. I love wildflowers. They fascinate me. My gardens are living proof that wildflower does not mean easy to grow. Trust me. It's like, dang, they grow everywhere out in the woods. And one thing I do suggest any kind of gardening that you're interested in doing is have your soil analyzed. I meet people and they'll go, well, no, I didn't have it analyzed, but I fertilized it. I was like, well, how did you know what to fertilize it with? If you don't know what you've got, how do you know how to amend it? It's kind of like shooting at a target with your eyes closed. You might hit it, but you might hit the neighbor. So finding out, going about it systematically is always a good idea, I think. Do I have any questions about wildflowers? I can't really give you a lot of trail advice right now because so much of my go-to stuff is inaccessible at the moment. The trails are unpassable. Yes, ma'am. I think a little bit. Are you talking about Big Creek down in the Smokies, right out at Waterville? Yeah. One of Oh yeah. The question was, she had been down to Big Creek and she said the bloom was pretty much past, and asked if, in my opinion, we had had an early bloom, and we did to some extent. And again, that depends on elevation too. 1,000 feet in elevation gains like going north 250 miles. So if I go up occasionally and work with the people at the swag and entertain their guests. I'm Scott, fly me. I take them out for walks. We do presentations. But I leave my home in Waynesville at 2,700 feet, and I drive 16 miles, and I'm at 5,000 feet, which is equivalent to being 600 miles north, because I've gone 2,300 feet up. And stuff that's finished in Waynesville is blooming big time up there now. That's that elevational difference. But as in general, I think the bloom was early this year. And again, I didn't get a chance to get down to Big Creek. It's one of my favorite places. On a good mid-April, you can walk a mile up that trail before it even gets steep, which is fine with me and my dotage. And on a good day, see 45 species in flower. And I mean hillsides of them. It's just phenomenal.
It's going to take me a minute to get this up, so.
Okay. Well, how I love you, how I love you. I'm showing my age. I'll do show tunes. Yes, I was delighted. Do we have many Jack in the Pulpits in this area? We have a bunch of them. And I was really delighted. I live in Waynesville in the flood zone in Hazelwood. I had 4 feet of fast moving gunk in my yard. My wife's pottery studio got trashed. We're not complaining. We had it made compared to a lot of people. But the mud was so viscous and vile, a lot of stuff couldn't grow through it. I cleaned it up as best I could. And today I discovered 6 jacks in my wildflower garden. So I was out doing my ooh, Jack in the Pulpit dance for the neighbors. Helene was fierce. I'm sure I'm preaching to the choir.
Is this it?
Yes. Is there any way we can maybe get the lighting lowered a little so the screen's more visible? Gotcha. Okay. I'll break something. All right, can you hear me now? Spring is a wonderful time because after the winter, we're all ready for it. I'll be 74 in October, and for the first time in my life, I'm not enjoying the winters as much. Up until 10 years ago, I camped and backpacked and hiked. I still hike in it, but I'm not backpacking in it anymore. It's harder than it used to be. But the rebirth, the regrowth, the regeneration, it's part of a cycle. My father referred to spring as the greening. And I think that's just a wonderful expression for it. We in this area, we're in the most biologically diverse region in North America. Within a 50-mile radius of Asheville, there are over 5,000 species of vascular plants. Vascular plants being ones that have a system to take water up and bring nutrients down. Think about getting water to the top of an 80-foot tall oak tree with a passive system. It's pretty phenomenal. And there are a lot of factors for it, but it leads to great diversity. I'm not going to go too much into that because of the timing, but let's see here. And I can use this to advance. Okay. This is a little shrub in my neighborhood. This is a not native, and it can be problematically invasive flower, but it's one of the first things that blooms every year. And I've not seen it be a flower in a problem in our area. This is a honeysuckle, the common name of which, there it is sweet breath of spring, Lonicera fragrantissima. Now, when I give you a Latin name, I do it with the caveat, as one of my professors told me. I went to school after I retired from the military. I graduated here at UNCA in 1997. Jim Petranka told me he did not believe that West Virginian and Latin could coexist peacefully. I said, what do you mean? This one, though, fragrantissima, have I got to sit here like this to be heard?
Let's do it.
Okay. Oh boy. Where's the microphone? Well, the handheld, because I like to look at the people. I can't sit here and.
Walter, is this appropriate name? Is that on?
The green. This one's on.
Hello. This one's on. Okay. Hopefully now I can look at you guys and then look at the screen and do all of this too. This is the first time for me here. It's different than where we've done it in the past at the church, but a beautiful little flower. It was called Sweet Breath of Spring because, as the species name fragrantissima might hint to you, it has a lovely aroma. You got to stick your nose right up in it. Sadly, none of our beautiful native honeysuckles have that wonderful scent. The two that are that smell wonderful are fragrantissima and japonica, the Japanese honeysuckle. And that's horribly invasive everywhere. Yet when I see it, I have to run over and stick my nose in it and take a deep breath, and then I'm 6 years old at Granny's again. So this is blooming right now. As are the little chickweeds. These are tiny little plants in the pink family. I always thought pink was because of the color, but it's because the petals are pinked, as if with pinking shears. What you're looking at there looks like 10 or actually 5 petals. This is star chickweed. And that's it up close. Now I want you to notice on this one, see how the sepals are much shorter than the petals? If you see, it looks exactly like that with one difference. But if you look at this one, look how the sepals extend out as long, if not longer, than the petals. That one is called Tennessee stitchwort. I have no idea where that name came from. But when I'm out in the woods, I always carry a little jeweler's loupe. I use a 7 magnification because some of these little tiny things, if you look at them under magnification, I hike in a kilt when it's hot, so I can say this blows hot air up my skirt. It's really, really beautiful, some of it. And having that little hand lens with you can make all the difference in the world. This, by the way, is edible. If any of you know Jeannie Martin, she's the person behind the Blue Ridge Naturalist program. I was the science guy, but she gathers it and makes pesto. Those flowers are about the size of your thumbnail, so you can imagine how big the foliage is. I'm lazy. I grow basil and make my pesto. Hers is quite good, but that's labor intensive. Then we have one of our prettiest flowers, I think, and one of our earliest to bloom. This is bloodroot, Sanguinaria canadensis. It's the only flower in that genus, Sanguinaria. Bloodroot, sanguine, bloodthirsty. It blooms so early in the year. The whole reason this plant has a flower is the flower is on behalf of the plant yelling, "Hello, sailor," to any pollinators that are out there. This blooms so early in the year that nothing else is usually in flower. So any insect that sees it, and there aren't a lot of insects in early March, mid-March, they're going to go check it out just because of the visual stimulus. So over evolutionary time, bloodroots no longer produce nectar. Nectar is normally one of the big enticements for a pollinator. It doesn't need it because anything that sees it's going to come check it out. It's ripping off the insects, but it makes sense from the bloodroots part. It's a member of the poppy family. Beautiful flower, has that lovely leaf that curves around and protects it. It's very lobed. If you ever had like Tom's Natural toothpaste, extract of sanguinaria is one of the components in it. It is a disinfectant. That's the beautiful leaf. And you can see the seed pod there and see that that's very typical of poppies, if any of you grow poppies in your gardens. And that's why it's called bloodroot. Native Americans would press the juices out of that and use them in various concoctions to help with sore throats and so on. They'd mix it with maple syrup. And even when it's mixed in and done that, it must be good for you because it is vile. My grandmother dosed me up when I was about 6 years old with castor oil. I can still taste it. And in the future, I just ran because I would rather suffer whatever the affliction was than go through that again. Here is a little rue anemone. We have the anemones blooming. If you're familiar with the later blooming plant, the rues that get a little taller, the foliage is very similar, and that's where the name rue anemone came from. Pretty little white flowers, low growing. That's another one of them. The spring flowers tend not to get real tall. They have to come up out of the leaf litter, attract the pollinator, produce a seed, and distribute the seed before the canopy of the tree fills in and deprives them of light, which minimizes their energy intake at that point. We call them spring ephemerals because they have such a brief period of natural life cycle each season. A lot of the true ephemerals, 2 months from now, you'll never know they were there. Even the foliage will be gone. But again, very small little things. Also, when you're small, in the spring, you don't have to get tall because you don't have a lot of grass and stuff up hiding your advertisement. So they have neither the time nor the need to grow tall. This is its first cousin. This is the wood anemone. It's a northern species. During our last glaciation, back when I was in high school, about 15,000 years ago, when the glaciers moved down, if you look at North America, our mountains basically run north to south, our major ranges. So you have all this area in between. Let's say a mouse is eating your fruit. Well, a mouse can stay ahead of a glacier. So it would eat the seeds, run down here, replant the population, staying in the same climate by staying at the same distance from the glacier, over and over and over. When the glacier retreated, they followed them back. So let's say a little three-tooth cinquefoil. I don't know if it's in this program or not, but say a population of it was established in central Ohio. When the glacier got far enough north, the climate was no longer right and the population died out. Some of our critters said, hey, Scott told us that going up 1,000 feet is 250 miles north. So some of them went up to the mountaintops. So we have glacial relic species, which is another factor that leads to our great biodiversity. The glaciers did not get to us. They didn't clean us to bedrock. They stopped at about the southern terminus of the Great Lakes. In fact, they dug the Great Lakes. But with a 7-mile thick sheet of ice in southern Ohio, it got chilly down here. I remember, well, there you can see, that's Anemone sanquifolia, and you can see the 5 leaves. Sank is because those French folks don't say 5. This, if it will kick on, yeah. It normally comes on with a little, yeah. You see him crawling up the hill? We saw that this spring over out of Smokemont in the Smokies. This time of year, the bears are out of their den. Now that was probably this year's cub based on the size of it. And I got just a brief video of it on my phone. He was going up something like that and just didn't look like it bothered it at all. They'll come out, they'll stay with their mom this summer, den with her again this winter, and then next year when she's getting ready to go into estrus again, go into heat, she'll kick them out. We call them yearlings. And you walk around and I do a lot of backpacking and camping. And I've had these befuddled little yearling bears come in going, what do we do now? Mom's not here. And it's really they're very endearing, but they're wild animals, and it's best to keep that in mind. So I yell at them, and they look at me like I've insulted them and run off. But you are seeing the bears out. This was probably 2 months ago, so they are well established and on their way.
Have a good life, bear.
That's him.
Wow.
But it's such a treat when you see something like that. One of my favorite little flowers. I had a lady once say, you said 7 or 8 things were your favorite. Which one is? It's probably the one I'm looking at that particular point in time. This is called bishop's cap or mitrewort. And apparently after the headgear worn as part of the regalia of a bishop in the Catholic Church. Another name for a cap is mitre, so mitrewort. If you look at it up close, and I have taken 10,000 pictures of this and never gotten one I'm happy with. But look how intricate that flower is. Again, that's where having that little hand lens with you can make all the difference in the world. And stopping to take the time to look at small stuff and think about it a little bit. One of my favorite people, one of my former students, Penelope Reed, has written a couple of books on the areas, and she used some of my photos, and she gave me a credit in one, and she referred to me as, she said, who taught me to get to know a plant. And I thought that was quite a compliment. This is sweet shrub, Calycanthus. My granny called it a booby bush. And apparently back the turn of the last century, when my grandmother was young, she was born in 1887. I don't think they bathed quite as frequently as we do. And she said the young girls would grab one of these because they're reputed to have a nice scent. I would say I find it noticeable in about 10% of the ones I check. But they would take it and they would put it in their bodice, I guess, as sort of a natural deodorant. But that was the booby bush. Calycanthus fertilis. That's the picture. It was used, it was steeped in a tea and made it as into an astringent for eye drops. And I have no idea the efficacy of it, but they did do it. This is a varietal of it, the only non-native plant I have planted in my yard, except for some roses that my wife insisted on. And I call her sir and do what she says. This was developed by Gene Dorr down at University of Georgia, and it has the most amazing scent. There's our front yard, I have 3 of them planted by the front door, and for the 3 weeks, our front yard was heavenly. You could smell it 10 feet away. It was gorgeous. I'm a native plant snob, but I'll fake it for a nice smell. Here's a little male cardinal. They're very territorial and very, very active right now, pairing up and reproducing. The Cherokees say that the cardinal was a little black bird. And one day he was trucking around and he found a wolf that had been asleep, and a raccoon had packed its eyes shut with mud. And it couldn't get it out, and it was whining and crying and asking for help. And most of the critters were going, yeah, we'll help you out and you'll eat us. No, thank you. And the little black cardinal said, I'll help him because I can fly up in the tree and he can't get me. So he pecked the mud out of the wolf's eyes and then hopped up in a tree. And rather than want to eat him, the wolf was very grateful, said, come with me, I have a magic place to take you. And he took him to where they found a pond full of brilliant red water. And it was very magic, had a lot of mojo to it. And he immediately started calling for his mate because he wanted to share it, but he was so excited he couldn't control himself, and he jumped in the water with just his beak and a little bit around it sticking up above it while he called. And she finally heard him and she flew in and joined him. But by then, he had absorbed so much of it. If you look at her in the top of the picture, there was not as much left for her to absorb and get the magic from, which I think is a wonderful story. I love that. That stuff is as much fun to me as the science. There's a very early blooming tree in our region. I saw a bunch of them yesterday. I went up onto the parkway. We parked at 215 where it was closed, and we hiked up as far as the Devil's Courthouse to look at the rhododendron, which I'll show you in a minute. They were really spectacular. But this is the serviceberry. It's a member of the rose family. Amelanchier is the genus. 150 years ago, 175 years ago, this area was isolated. It was hard to get to. And in the winters, with a hard freeze coming on, the circuit riding preachers couldn't get in. So you couldn't have a funeral service or a wedding service. It became Sarvisberry as we perfected our dialect. But about the time this blooms, the conditions eased, the roads opened, and the preachers got in. You could bring Grandpa out from behind the smokehouse. The ground was soft enough you could bury him and have your funeral service. You could get married to Betty Lou and have your wedding service or whatever. Down on the coast, the same tree is called a shadblow because it blooms when the shad, which is a saltwater fish, do their big migratory runs every year, which is what I really love about the common names, is the stories behind them and how well they work. And every common name is valid. If it's the common name you grew up with, it might not be as swank as the one I grew up with, but it's still valid. And if you look at this one up close, it is a member of the rose family. Very typical of wild roses are 5 petals and a ton of stamen. This is very pretty, produces a delicious fruit if you can beat the birds to it. I'm often amazed though when I read these wild cooking and foraging, they'll say take a cup of those and a cup of sugar. So I'll take a cup of those and maybe 1/8 of a cup of sugar. I just don't believe you need to add to naturally sweet things all the sugar that most of the recipes. The other thing they always tell you to do is fry it in butter and garlic. And I'm fine with that. I'll use all the garlic they suggest. Here's trailing arbutus, a little low growing one, and it's done for the year already. We saw some, we hiked up the Kanati Trail. Kanati is Cherokee apparently for steep. We did 2 miles and gained 1,600 feet. My knees are old enough that that was not fun. This will change color as it ages and has a beautiful scent. It is a really difficult one to transplant. Not that any of you would do it, I hope, but don't take them out of the wild. You're just going to kill it if you do. That's the more of the flower. You can low growing down on the ground. Here's hepatica. We have 2 hepatica. When I learned them, the genus was hepatica. They're doing genetic work now, so the genus is now, it's an anemone, which it always was. You know, our original classifications were based on what we could see. It does this, and then it does that, and so does that plant, so they must be related. But now with the genetic work, we're finding out that's not necessarily the case. Quite frequently, if you fill the same niche, I'm never sure how to pronounce that. We didn't have them in West Virginia when I was a kid. But if you could fill the same niche, you're going to probably develop a similar form. We used to think bats were hairy birds that flew. We know they're not now. So this is the round-lobed. We also get, that's the round-lobed again. And here's a sharp-lobed with a whiter flower. You see how the leaf has 3 lobes? A common name for this was liverwort. Hepatica, the genus, your hepatic function, your liver function. Thousands of pounds of this under the doctrine of the old doctrine of signatures, which stated that everything on the planet was put here by God or your gods or your goddesses, whatever your culture, to serve us. Probably because we had opposable thumbs and would eventually pave the place. But thousands of pounds of this were harvested and processed into various products. As late as 1887, there are records of 250,000 pounds of this being processed into liver treatments in North America. Doesn't do a thing. At least it's benign. Some of them will send you to the next level if you get into them. I love the story of the doctrine of signatures, but I'm going to ask for a Western diagnosis. Everyone knows this one around Easter time in the spring. This is flowering dogwood. The flower are the little green nubs in the center. What most people think are petals are actually sepals which subtend the inflorescence. You have to know these things to be a naturalist. My granny called it the Easter tree. The blotches on the end of the bracts were the wounds in Christ's hands and feet. And there's even an old bluegrass gospel song that said the cross on which Jesus was crucified was made of dogwood. And I believe he was on the cross for 3 hours, but during that time, God realized and Jesus realized the tree was aghast at being used so horribly. And God's gift to it for its genuine remorse was that it would never grow straight and tall and large enough to be used in such an evil fashion. And I would say, Granny, and she would go, yeah, boy. And I'd say, I don't think that tree grows over there. She'd go, hush, boy, don't be smart. I got a lot of hush, boy, don't be smart from my granny. She worried about me. I was a little heathen for her taste. That's one of my favorite pictures I've taken of it up on the parkway. I've shot probably 100,000 photos in the last 30 years, and I've got maybe 10 that I really am proud of, and that's one of them. I got actually what I saw. It's also a pretty tree if you can catch it against the sun. Here's our other Easter blooming tree, the redbud. It is a member of the pea family. It's an example of cauliflory, cauliflory. The flower buds will come right out of the branch. It's in the pea family. If you know pea flowers, you recognize that. Granny would fry them up into fritters. I have some in one in my yard, although it's dying. It's hard to keep them here because they want basic soils, and we do not have basic soils. We have very acidic. But I'll throw the flowers into salads. There you can see the typical pea flower. That's the tree that the flowers on it were white until Judas Iscariot hung himself on it, according to my granny. And then they turned blood red out of shame. I said, Granny? She said, yeah, boy. I said, I don't think that grows over there. Hush, boy, don't be smart. I have since learned apparently it is a relative of it that does grow there. So maybe there's something to that. Also time to be on the alert for these guys waking up and coming out. Beautiful creatures. You see that big rattle on it. I was like 15 feet away from it, and I used a zoom lens. When I'm out with people and see a snake, my first step is backwards every single time. When I identify it, if it's a rat snake or something that's not going to hurt me, I may pick it up and we'll talk about it. I'm not going to mess with this guy. This is timber rattlesnake. This is Croatulus horridus. A copper snake bite, copperhead bite, might kill me now that I'm old and feeble. It wouldn't have 15 years ago. It might have made me wish I was dead. This guy will send you to the next level right now. They do not want to bite you, though. They hunt with that venom. Why waste it on something too big and gristly to eat? Normal bad interactions with these guys come because we startle them or we behave stupidly. Look, a snake. Well, if you don't know what it is, don't grab it. Beautiful animals. This is a yellow phase. Not a great photo, but I do have, if you look there, you can see the head. This is the black phase. They're the two morphs of it we get. They will be bigger around than my arm at the elbow. They are big, stocky snakes, and they are active now. Red elderberry, and that's blooming up. I saw some pretty ones yesterday up on the parkway. You can make a wine out of this, although in my experience, it's like dandelions. It establishes that more people make wine than should. That again is the flower of it. Beautiful conical shape. The common elderberry, which will be flowering very shortly, to my eye isn't as pretty. I like the gaudy, pretty colored ones. There's an old country song that says, too much makeup, too much rouge, makes me get excited, makes me feel confused. And I'm in that camp for the wildflowers. I like the bright, shiny ones. This is a large flowered bellwort. We saw all three of our bellworts yesterday, called bellwort because it hangs down. The genus is Uvularia. Think of the uvula in the back of your throat. Doctrine of signatures. This was massively harvested and used to make throat tinctures because, look, it wouldn't look like that if it wasn't good for helping your throat ailments. This is the large flower. Do you notice how the stem on that seems to pierce the leaf? There's another one that does that, which is this one, which is the perfoliate bellwort. Slightly different color, but the really defining way to tell the difference between the two is if you look in the throat of the perfoliate, it has a granular texture in it. The large flower doesn't. So if you see that, you're looking at perfoliata. If it's smooth, you're looking at grandiflorum. And the third one we get is smaller, and that is, for whatever reason, it's called wild oats. And it's the only one that is not perfoliate. It doesn't pierce the leaf. Also tends to have fewer blooms. You might see 4 or 5 flowers on a large plant. The other ones you'll see 10 or 15. But the bellworts are a sure sign of spring. Eastern columbine. Beautiful, member of the buttercup family. That's in my front yard. In England, they're very popular in formal gardens. The early ink colonists here thought it was beautiful and took seeds back. And if it's happy, you'll have a bunch of them very soon. Primarily pollinated by hummingbirds. And to watch a little ruby-throated hummingbird, if I can figure out how this works. Maybe I got it. He'll hover down here. The nectaries are up in the end of the spurs. So the hummingbird's going up with that long beak and tongue up into the top to get the nectar. Insects will climb up the outside of it and chew their way in. We call them nectar thieves because they're getting the nectar without doing the pollinating. Because if you'll notice here, there is no way to get up in that flower and not brush against the style stamen. The whole gig of a flower is reproduction. Hello, sailor. You want to be the one that gets noticed. That's looking up into that throat. These guys are pairing up right now. This was at my house in Asheville when I still lived there. I was standing beside the nest box that he or she had chicks in. And doesn't she look like, or he looked like tapping its foot, going, you know, get your keister away from my nest. It's one of my favorite shots of the bluebirds. And this is why he was fussing, because he or she wanted to go back and feed the young ones. I lived on the edge of the golf course. And if you want bluebirds, you need to be near a meadow or an open area because they like that for foraging. When they go through and mow, it kicks up a lot of insect activity. If you're out in the woods and put out bluebird boxes, you'll probably get chickadees or nuthatches or titmice. We get a couple of species that are related here. This is Dutchman's breeches. It's, again, a relic species. We tend to find it. It certainly does better at higher elevations. A bumblebee will come along and hang underneath that and vibrate its thorax, which will cause the pollen to dislodge from the interior and fall down, and it traps it in its pollen baskets. It's called buzz pollination. So we have the Dutchman's breeches. There you can see the foliage. We have squirrel corn. See the similar foliage, but if you look at the flower, it's different. The spurs aren't widely apart. They're rounded. They're closer together. There are the two to show you. The squirrel corn on the left as you're looking, and the Dutchman's breeches on the right. Old timers around here, the early colonists did not like them. They called them stagger weeds. They contain alkaloids that would poison their cattle. So their cattle were up in the forest foraging, and if they ate a bunch of that, they would come staggering out of the woods, and it would oftentimes kill them. And 200 years ago, you lost your dairy cow. That was a hit. That was a big deal for you, your family, financially and food and nutrition-wise. So beautiful does not mean benign. This, if you look, again, okay, yeah, good. If you look right here, you can see a little bit of the actual blaze. This was 2 weeks ago down off of the Cherrahola Skyway. Listen closely if the system here has the audio, and listen to the Forest Service guys at the very end of this short little clip.
There's a lot going on out there right now, a lot of communication. There he is.
Oh, yeah. So I'm so glad you have the funds to do this. And
The funds?
A sad note that when you tell the Forest Service guy you're glad he's got funding, and he goes, funds? And laughs, does not speak well of us, in my opinion. These fires, though, were not so severe that had they been let go, they wouldn't have been terrible for the ecosystem. They were more concerned about people and the impact on tourism. They weren't burning hot enough to take out big trees. They were getting rid of a lot of litter many ways could be beneficial if they don't get out of control. But
There's a lot going on out there.
around here we get lovely waterfalls. This is down near the Cherrahola, near Joyce Kilmer. This is Yellow Creek Falls. Just there's so many beautiful things and places around here. This is down there. This is on the Cherrahola. This is Huckleberry Knob. That's from the deck at the Snowbird Lodge, where I'm privileged to spend a couple of weeks a year. Whoops. Well, apparently, I don't know what's happening. It's not reading my discs, my things. I will again reiterate the Blue Ridge, and I had a slide on here for it I put on this afternoon. The Blue Ridge Naturalist Network, which are the graduates of the Blue Ridge Naturalist Program, the Arboretum, they have an association. They're having a wildflower sale on Sunday, thank you. Yeah, and I had the address and everything on there, but I think they had it up earlier too. If you're interested in flowers, go there. She's got some flyers and handouts for you. If you don't have ones to swap, those Jack in the Pulpits I was talking about, I got there 2 years ago. For $4 a plant, you can't beat it. So I'm going to say that is the end of my program, and it's just about the right time. Any questions or comments, or you want to throw any fruit at me or anything? Thank you, guys. I have a Facebook page. I don't do a website. Facebook is free. The guy said, "What about privacy?" I said, "I never discuss that hobo I murdered. I don't put that on there." But if you'd like a card, I have some up here. But if you have any questions, I'd be glad to try to answer.
Now, I'm not sure if I should ask you or the people at the swap or where you buy the plants, but I have acidic soil. So does it matter?
Oh, absolutely. Acidic soil is wonderful for things like your rhododendron, your laurels, plants like that. And the people that will be there, I'm sure some of them will be able to give you good advice
Okay,
on
so
which ones.
what they have. Thank you.
And I think you're going to have some flyers at the door when people are leaving if they want to look at one or take a picture of it. Yeah. Yeah. We'll stand up and wave to folks so they'll know who to look for. Okay. Other questions?
This was easy. Well, thank you guys for coming out. I hope you'll continue to support the Sierra Club. Any environmental organizations, I think perhaps now more than ever, sadly, if we don't do it, it won't get done. And if we allow it to be destroyed, it will be. So keep the faith and give them hell. Thank y'all so much.
Well, thank you, Scott, once again, and thank his granny. I love his granny. Please come again next month to talk about the urban environment instead of the wildflower environment. So how we keep Asheville and our cities in Buncombe County beautiful. So please come again. Thank you.